he is a consummate artist. I don't know if people realize how damn good he is.
He could be the equal of Howard Pyle or N.C. Wyeth or any of the great illustrators.
Even as a child of about 6 years old, 5, 6, and then on, I loved to draw faces and people and cartoons. And if I wasn't drawing, I was building model airplanes. And I was determined that I was either going to be an artist or an airplane pilot at one point. I went into the Marine Corps and was in the service for 2 years. And then after the Marine Corps, then I went to art school at the Chicago Academy of Fine Arts. After that 2 years, I went to the American Academy of Art for 6 months, taking anatomy and life drawing and painting class. And then from there, I became an apprentice in an art studio. Well, Harold Munstock introduced me to Sundblom, and Sundblom told me to bring him my life drawings, which I did, and on the strength of my life drawings, he hired me as an apprentice in his studio. He particularly, he liked the way I drew hands and feet. I was very, very careful with the draftsmanship in feet and hands, and certainly due in large part to the influence of my instructor. And so he liked that and took note of it, and so I became an apprentice in his studio. Then after a time, he asked if I would work on the hands on his paintings, lay in the hands, and then I progressed from there into laying in some of the figures, for instance, on Coca-Cola posters. And it was a marvelous experience because I could feel free to do the painting, and I knew he'd come along and fix it up, so I was free to make all the mistakes I wanted. And then from there, I progressed to painting the flowers around these cashmere bouquet ads that he did of the romantic boy-girl thing surrounded by flowers. And he had a way of painting these flowers that was unique. They were flowers, but they weren't necessarily specific flowers. And so I had to duplicate this, and he'd pay me, I think it was $60 a piece per painting to do these flowers. So I was making money hand over fist in those days. And then he'd go back and he'd correct, all my mistakes. And before I came to New York, it was all advertising. And after I'd been in New York for a few years and became established, or at least started to build some kind of a reputation, then I was able to get into the magazines. I think Ladies' Home Journal was the first one that gave me a break, and then from there it was McCall's and Good Housekeeping and Cosmopolitan. And I think that's another advantage in having been an illustrator, because there has to be a great variety in the work that's done and the body of work, and you can't repeat yourself. And so that's been helpful, I think, to me in my fine arts career. Getting back to that painting of the couple on the ship, of course, a good part of that painting was the superstructure on that boat, and that was a great part of the design. But of course, the art director at the magazine decided they wanted to close in close on the figures, missed the point of the whole thing, and they cropped off all that superstructure. They sure did. I think one of the wonderful experiences of illustrating for an article, a story in a magazine, was to pick something in that story that could illustrate the story. In other words, one scene that could attract the reader's interest and make them want to read the whole story. And that schooling, if you will, has been enormously helpful to me through my years of fine art painting, because so many of the subjects that I paint, you know, the ceremonial things, the specific scenes, historic events, you have to pick and capture one moment. You can't spend hours filming. So it has to be one moment to tell that story. And it has to read immediately. You have to be able to look at it and understand it right away. Producers and the art directors always wanted everything in the painting. I mean, everything in the movie had to go in the painting. So it was sometimes a bit of a struggle. The first movie that I did was Guns of Navarone with Gregory Peck and David Niven and Anthony Quinn. I think that was about 1964. And fortunately, the movie was a big success, so that made me a hero. And of course, I had absolutely nothing to do with the quality of the movie, but after that, they just started snowballing, and it was one movie after another.
And I remember seeing it as if it was yesterday, the Guns of Navarone, when I saw the poster for the movie. And I said, man, that is some kind of art. And my eyes just bugged out of my head. And of course, he did so many more beyond that.
I did Counterfeit Trader with William Holden, and for some reason I enjoyed working on that movie. There was a shining example of everything in the movie going on in the painting, but there was a scene in the film where these people were being chased by, I think, some German motorcycles or something through this European village, and all of the people got out on their bicycles and rode along the street to block these trucks so they couldn't catch these people trying to escape. And so they wanted, across the bottom of the painting, a side view of all of these people riding bicycles. And I remember sitting up all one night working on those bicycles and painting all of those wheels and all of these figures. And well, fortunately, you know, they were moving, so I could, you know, fudge on that, but I just about went out of my mind. Lawrence of Arabia. I did 2 paintings for Cleopatra. I did the re-release of Gone with the Wind. I had to find a model, a voluptuous model for Gone with the Wind, and then use Vivien Leigh's head in there.
When he puts those hands in, they're done wonderfully. With a few strokes of his brush, he can make that hand live. It comes right out at the viewer, but it has not only that, it has even soul in it.
These days, I do a drawing for myself. It's a half-size drawing. In other words, it's half the size that the original painting is going to be. And then I go from there and scale it up to full size and transpose the drawing onto the canvas. I like to paint light on dark, so I always put a wash of color on the canvas, a middle tone, and let it dry, and then start the painting on those tones so I'm not confronted with a white canvas. I work all around the painting. I don't focus on one area and finish it. I try to keep everything moving and get the whole painting established. And I figured out years ago that I basically do a painting 3 times. It's the initial lay-in and sort of a halfway point, if you will, where things are carried further but not completed. And then I go back and finish the painting, finish one area after another and then complete it that way.
He has that ability to tell a story so that you are there. His ideas are always totally original, things that nobody's done before, and it just amazes me what he comes up with. I've known Howard for 40 years, and I have no idea how he does it. It just seems to come out of him, like the brownies come at night and help him out or something.
Well, I think when someone buys a work of mine, be it an original or a print, that they have a sense of not only the appreciation of what they're buying, but they feel drawn into that work, into that picture, and they feel emotionally connected with it somehow, perhaps even if they don't realize it. But I've talked with so many people who say that they feel connected to the painting somehow. They feel that they're there. They feel emotionally moved by it. And that's what any art should do, be it music or literature or painting. It should move people. That's the purpose of art.